and I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, everybody, thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View for a little ladies' tea. Tonight, we're joined by the Daily Caller's Mary Rooke, as well as host of the Mom Wars podcast and Substack, Bethany Mandel. Bethany and Mary, thank you both so much for joining us. It's hard to get past it. I know everybody's talked about it, but this past Sunday was the 1-year anniversary of course, Butler, Pennsylvania, and everything that went on there. Obviously, this was something very personal for our family, but it was something that I think, Bethany, every single person in the country, and I'm going to extend to probably the world, remembers where they were whenever they found out that this moment had happened. I truly believe that it changed the course of history. I truly believe that the reason my father-in-law's life was spared was divine intervention of some variety. I believe it was a miracle, and I believe he remains here on earth to save the country. And that's what he told me he wanted his legacy to be when I interviewed him about this very subject for my Fox show. So, Bethany, take us back for you about your experience with Butler, Pennsylvania, and overall, I keep going back to how the fake news reported on it at the time, and so many of them said things like Donald Trump falls on stage. You know, they made light of it in the moment. A man lost his life at that rally, and my father-in-law almost lost his. So what do you think about things, Bethany, a year later?
So I had one of my best friends at that rally, Selena Zito, who just wrote a best-selling book about everything that happened. And I just read it a couple days ago and was riveted. You know, reading it, you know, it felt like yesterday, even though it was a year ago. And that theme of this was divine intervention was a recurring one in Selena's book. And I truly believe it. Even if you're not a fan of President Trump, even if you think that he's the devil incarnate, you just can't deny that when the man turns his head just a little bit and it goes through his ear. If they had written that for a television show, they would have just scratched that out and said, this is too outrageous, this is too unbelievable. But if, God forbid, something had happened on that day, the course of human history would be a lot darker. And again, I say that as someone who, saying that to someone who may not love President Trump, you have to admit that things would have devolved in a really deep, scary way had that assassin's bullet met the target. And I think it's the best view of God's divine intervention that we've seen in our lifetimes. I don't know how you can deny the existence of God when you see a bullet went through his ear. Like, what are the odds of that happening? I'm so grateful that, you know, nothing happened, and that, I mean, obviously the tragedy that happened to Corey's family is awful, but you know, we were able to stay the course of him becoming president. And that was the moment that he became president. And when he stood up and said, fight, 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 with blood streaking down his face, I think most Americans knew that was the moment he was elected president.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I remember people in sort of the hours after, when we finally knew he would be okay, and like friends of ours started texting us again, because for a while it was really quiet. No one knew anything, you know, what to say to us, because for a while you didn't really know what was going on. But I remember a lot of people, Bethany, texting us that and saying, like, he just won the election. Obviously, as RNC co-chair, I wasn't going to let my guard down. I wasn't going to count on that to win any sort of election. But you know what, Mary, I think that whenever you look overall, as Bethany was just saying, at what could have happened, God forbid, that bullet had, you know, been on target where it was intended to go. I thought about that a lot in sort of the months afterwards. I still think about it sometimes. Imagine what would have happened if the Republican nominee for president, forget who it is, anyone, is killed like that, right? But then you take it a step further and think about what he's been able to do since he's been president. Think about the way our country would have been viewed. And I think part of the reason that he got up and put his fist in the air and yelled, fight, 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 I think it was two reasons. He always acknowledges the fact that he looked down and he saw all the people who were there in Butler that day, because he could see them laying on the ground. There's that very famous picture where you see him kind of looking out and his face is almost on the ground. And he said they were scared. They thought that I was dead. They didn't know what was going on. And I needed to get up for them. But I also think he knew, Mary, instinctually in that moment that he had to represent something so much bigger than himself. He had to represent the United States of America. And he got up and he showed that it doesn't matter what happens to us in this country. We will always prevail. We will always get up. We will always continue to fight. And I think that moment just kind of solidified our spot on the world stage, and it let the world know, like, we may have been down and out as a country, which we were at that time with Joe Biden in office. We are not going to stay down and out. We will get up, we will fight, and we will prevail. Absolutely amazing, Mary.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, I remember, obviously, like y'all said, exactly where I was, exactly what I was doing. I remember it felt like the world had stopped. You know, I got the first text from my sister saying, have you checked Twitter? Trump's been shot. And I immediately stop what I'm doing. I go on and I'm trying to get as much information as possible. My husband and I are looking at each other like, we can't believe it. I remember that we were in the Midwest visiting family, and the days leading up, you wouldn't have even known that the presidential election was happening. We were in an affluent area, and there were absolutely no presidential election signs for Biden or Trump out. And then the very next morning, I went out to the grocery store, and there were Trump signs everywhere. Wow. And it just felt like this huge momentum shift. Like you said, it was the moment he became president, and it put all of our enemies on notice. It was like, this man has been shot in the ear. He stands up. He lets the crowd know. He lets the world know that America's going to fight. I remember I was actually thinking about this when I was watching a Tucker episode with Robert O'Neill, who shot Osama bin Laden. And Tucker was asking him, like, what do you think that message sent to the world? And he said, you know, it doesn't really matter what is happening to America. We can be that sleepy person that's sitting there, but they know that as soon as we get in the fight, we're going to win. And I felt like that was like Trump personified. As soon as he gets in the fight, he has that mentality that he's going to win, and this wasn't going to take him down. And when you talk about what could have happened, I mean, we had kind of a mini version of that when Joe Biden fell out of the race. I mean, it was complete chaos, and then all of a sudden Kamala gets installed, and so you worry about what kind of candidate would have been installed in the Republican Party at that point. And then all the wins that we've had. Think about how much he's done to help save women and girls' sports, how much he's done to roll back trans ideology, defund Planned Parenthood, all of the stuff he's done for the tariffs and the economy, all of this stuff to try and get this, you know, big, massive United States machine moving again and rolling again. And so, you know, we'd be in a very dark, different place than we are right now. And like y'all said, it's divine intervention, and you just have to thank God that he saved him that day, because he didn't just save Trump and y'all's family from mourning, he saved the entire country from tearing apart.
And I would say the world as well. I would add to that. And what I remember too is that right after all this happened, it kind of felt like we did have a moment in time, a freeze frame in time, where it felt like everyone came together and everyone was like, well, this is wrong. We can't have things like this happen. This is not how we operate in the United States of America. Now, that lasted for a very short amount of time, Bethany, because I also remember that there were these crazy people who were out there saying things like, oh, you know, this was fake. It was fake blood. Trump faked this. By the way, nothing is more insulting than I remember going to the Republican National Convention the week after this happened and being interviewed by someone. And they asked me, they were like, well, there are a lot of people out there who think that it was fake. I mean, it's shameful that people carried on that narrative and that whole nonsense. But then you've got people, even today, Bethany, like Jasmine Crockett, who went on some podcast and decided that she wanted to say that Trump supporters, MAGA supporters, were the ones who attempted this assassination and have done all of the assassination attempts against President Trump. She said, obviously, anyone can be a criminal. It is MAGA. It is specifically MAGA faction. I don't think traditional Republicans are getting engaged in all of this, but even when we look at, and they don't like to talk about the assassination attempts anymore that took place with Donald Trump, but these were Trump supporters, right? What? Trump supporters, excuse me, first of all, we still don't have enough information about Thomas Crooks, the guy from Butler. He certainly would not be identified, I don't think, as a Trump supporter in any way. I don't think there was any indication of that whatsoever. And then you have Ryan Ruth, the guy down in Florida, definitely not a Trump supporter. For anyone wondering, let me remind you of what he wrote about this very event. He said, this was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump but I failed you. I tried my best and gave it all the gumption I could muster. It's up to you now to finish the job. And then he offers people money to finish the job. Bethany, that does not sound like Trump supporters to me. That is absolute lunacy. But then again, this is Jasmine Crockett. This is the face of the Democrat Party right now, one of their rising stars. So maybe we shouldn't be surprised that she has such nonsense to spew out there.
So I had a different, obviously, experience than you did on that day. My phone was off because it was the Jewish Sabbath, and I turned it back on hours after. I did not witness the unity that you're describing.
It was a moment. It was a moment. Yeah, very quick.
It was a very fleeting moment because I didn't see it a couple hours later. I immediately saw too bad it didn't hit its mark. But I mean, we saw a shooting at a church over the weekend with the shooter wearing a keffiyeh, wearing a Palestinian scarf. Where is the conversation about that nationally? Where is our media talking about that? I don't think that was a Trump supporter. I can pretty much assure you that he was quite the opposite. But this bizarre narrative that has emerged on the left where, one of my favorite conspiracy theories is that it was the glass from the teleprompter.
Teleprompter, oh my God.
His ear.
Yeah.
It was televised. We all watched it. But I think that it's really telling from the left because they can't just admit that a bullet nicked the man's ear because that proves that there was some divine intervention there. And they can't give him an inch. They can't say, wow, that was really impressive, thank God. Because I think they're so intimidated by him, they can't give an inch lest they accidentally give the man kudos for surviving an assassin bullet. Bizarre.
Give him nothing, Bethany. You can't even give him credit for that. It's so true. It's actually mind-boggling whenever you think about it. But it's why this party continues to devolve. It's why this party is now a party that is on the side of illegal immigrants. They're on the side of illegal immigrant gangs, of human traffickers, drug traffickers, because that's what we've seen from all of these crazy people out there fighting against our federal law enforcement, fighting against ICE agents all over the country, but especially in LA. And the thing that really got me in LA was when you had LA Mayor Karen Bass say that she did a press conference to say that she was going to give cash cards to illegals who were impacted by the ICE raids. Okay, Mary? In other words, if you were here illegally, if you broke our laws to come here to the United States, and you happen to have a family member who is taken away or something, whatever it is, in whatever way you feel impacted by it, she's got cash for you. She also directed all of the LA city departments to refuse to work with the federal government. I'll remind everybody that the city of Los Angeles is facing a $1 billion deficit right now, and there was very limited assistance for people impacted by the wildfires. Don't forget, that just happened out there. But they're willing, Mary, to give cash to people who feel they've been negatively impacted by the ICE raids. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. What about the people with the wildfires whose homes are still not built? Like you see this dystopian picture that is real, that was going around a couple days ago of just devastation out there. Not a single building has been built since this all happened. It's so weird. And the fact that they're willing to continue to give money they don't have to people who broke our laws is incredible, okay? But this is the Democrat Party in a nutshell. They like to take the losing issue and then they like to put it on their back and carry it across the finish line as hard as they possibly can run. And I just commend them for it and hope they continue to do it, because the more that they act like that, the more the middle of the road people, the independents, are going to wake up and be like, no, this is insanity. Actually, my house hasn't been built yet and we can't be giving these people money. How about you stop the regulations and help me get the building codes up to speed so that we can get this done. I also think that it's going to activate Tom Homan. Tell Tom Homan that your agencies are not going to, comply.
Cooperate,
with with the federal government. Oh. And he's like, guess where I'm going next? Back to LA. It's like, that's like the funny part. It's almost like she's asking for punishment, you know, like when your dad comes home and he's like, say one more word and you're getting in trouble, and she's like, one more word, and Tom Homan's like, thank you, that was all the, you know, all I needed to go in. And so, you know, she should just watch out, because the voters are going to come, Tom Homan's going to come, and there won't be anyone to give money to.
Well, and by the way, Bethany, this is still an issue that the majority of the American public agrees with. We don't want people, you know, there's this fallacy out there that these ICE agents are like going in schools and like ripping kids out of kindergarten classes. That is not happening at all. What often happens is you have some sort of illegal activity on top of the illegal immigration. So we're talking some sort of a crime, drugs, you know, weapons, human trafficking, those sorts of things that are, you know, being investigated. Terrorism, hello, how many people came across our southern border on the terror watch list? You know, everybody associates this with, you know, people from Central and South America. This is all over the world they came in. Don't forget that. So they're investigating something like that. And then if they come upon a group of people like they did at this weed farm recently, where, you know, there were shots that were fired at ICE agents, then yeah, if you were here illegally, guess what the protocol is? You should be deported. You shouldn't be here in the United States of America. But on top of all of the craziness that people like Karen Bass are doing, you now have these activists who are doxing the ICE agents. And this is dangerous stuff. You know, Tom Homan even said he doesn't stay at his home a lot of times. He stays separately from his wife most of the time because he's afraid about something happening to her. He's afraid for her safety. This is not a joke anymore. You know, to put the faces and the information up of federal law enforcement agents, people who are out there, Bethany, just trying to do their jobs, it's incredibly dangerous for them. These people do not deserve that. They are literally enforcing the laws that the United States Congress voted into law. That's what they're doing. If these people don't like it, if politicians don't like it, change the law. This is the law we have here in the United States of America. But this doxing of ICE agents, I think, is absolutely terrible, Bethany.
Yeah, it's terrifying, honestly. I mean, we saw Vice President J.D. Vance when he was at Disneyland with his children over the weekend. People were screaming at him that you're separating families and throwing them into gulags. They're comparing all of these detention centers to gulags, to concentration camps like Auschwitz. Yeah. They're calling it Alligator Auschwitz, which is such an insult to people who survived Auschwitz and Russian gulags and all of these places. But they've decided that this is the hill that they're going to die on, that they care more about the physical comfort of these folks in detention than American citizens who have had their houses burned down in Los Angeles. But it's wild to me because, you know, we're seeing in New York City that the left is resisting mask bans. The leftist progressives are using masks to shield their identities so that they can commit crimes and be terrorists, basically, in New York City. At the same time that they're doing that, they're criticizing ICE agents who are performing a lawful, really vital service for the American government. They're telling them, screaming at them, take off your masks, take off your masks. But the reason why they are having these masks on is to protect their families. I saw an ICE agent who was doxxed who got a letter that was like serial killer style, letters cut out of a magazine that spelled a threat, mailed to his home address where he lives with his family. And, you know, obviously J.D. Vance has Secret Service security. All of these, you know, top level people in the administration do, thank God. But we shouldn't need Secret Service level security for people who are ICE agents. But they're at the point now, and I live among, you know, a lot of federal agents here in the Washington, D.C. area. They're glad they have guns at their house, but they're scared for their family's safety when they're not in the house.
If you're anything like me, you've probably asked yourself, where did all the good family entertainment go? You know, the good quality stuff that used to exist way back in the day. It feels like every time you turn on the TV, you're either cringing or reaching for the remote. And that's why I'm so proud to support Angel Studios, a platform that's bringing back stories grounded in faith, family, and freedom. The good stuff. Films like Sound of Hope, the powerful true story of a small Texas church that adopted 77 foster children. or King of Kings, the inspiring animated hit film that has helped children all over the world understand and better appreciate the life and teachings of Jesus. Something to Stand For with Mike Rowe. It's an incredible tribute to ordinary Americans who risked everything to defend liberty. And the recently released film, The Last Rodeo, a heartland drama about a veteran bull rider who gets back in the arena to save his grandson's life. It's raw, redemptive, and rooted in everything we love about America. Angel's creating entertainment that reflects our values, honoring our veterans, celebrating strong families, and reminding us what makes this country wonderful. And when you join the Angel Guild, you're not just watching these stories, you're helping fund, shape, and share them. As a premium member, you'll get 2 free tickets to every theatrical release, ad-free streaming, and full access to Angel's entire streaming library. This country was built on values worth preserving, and it starts with the stories we choose to tell. So if you're ready to change entertainment for the better, go to angel.com/Lara and become a premium Angel Guild member today. Mike Lindell and MyPillow employees want to thank my listeners for all of your continued support. Mike has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of their life, and he didn't stop by creating the best pillow. He's also created the best bed sheets ever. Mike is offering the best deal on his Percale bed sheets. You can get a set for as low as $24.98. The MyPillow Percale sheets are breathable and have a cool, crisp feel. They have deep pockets to fit over any mattress, and they look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me, which is crucial for my busy schedule. Also, for a limited time, when your order is over $100, you will receive $100 in free digital gifts. Go to MyPillow.com and use promo code TRUMP to receive the MyPillow Percale sheets for as low as $24.98. Order now or call 800-624-3945 and use promo code TRUMP. It's completely unacceptable. And again, just to go back to kind of how we started this conversation, this is one of the ways that the Democrats are just going to continue to dig themselves in a hole. The American people do not want to see this. This is not the side to be on. You know, you also have to look at the fact that the people who have come here illegally are also having to do things like live in the shadows. President Trump has offered, do a self-deportation. Not only will we give you money to do it, you go back to your home country, you reapply, then you come here legally, and guess what? You don't have to live in the shadows. You don't have to make less money than American citizens do. You can be among us. You can be one of us. You can pay into our systems. You can be part of all of this. That's what we want to see happen. You have to send a signal. You have to be strong and stern. And you know what? President Trump didn't ask for this. It is because of the failure of the previous administration, the previous president, and don't forget our border czar back then was Kamala Harris. No one's even thought about that in a while. Remember what an absolute joke that was? And she never even went down to the southern border. That's why we have to deal with this now, because that administration left us a mess, a disaster on our hands. And somebody's got to do the hard job of cleaning it up. So I personally am grateful that we have a president who cares enough about Americans. He's willing to take this on. And ICE agents who are willing to uphold the law and do a very tough job. We are incredibly grateful for all of them. And speaking of the last administration and the former president, Joe Biden, you know what? That auto pen's just coming back, Mary. It keeps coming back to haunt him. Bless his heart, as we say in North Carolina, for old Joe. He signed a lot of pardons and a lot of commutations. They're right at the end, thousands of them in the last couple of days, really leading up to him exiting the White House. Now he says he had to use the auto pen because he had way too many pardons to physically sign. Now he says he verbally gave approval for these, Mary. I gotta be honest with you. If you have that many pardons and commutations that you can't sign them yourself, maybe you've got a few too many. I'm just going to throw it out there. There is absolutely no way that Joe Biden has any recollection of any of those. There is one, though. There is one he has a recollection of because it's the only one he signed. That was Hunter Biden's, Mary. What do you think of that?
You know, I think it's really interesting when you look at the New York Times article that came out one of the bylines on that was actually the reporter that got Joe Biden's number and called him. And if y'all remember that story that came out about it, he called him and spoke to him on the phone, and then his aides came, freaked out, came and got the phone, turned it off, and then disconnected the number so he could never do that again. And then now they come out with this story. Well, they give him, 10 minutes, I think they said. They gave him 10 minutes to talk on the phone. So it's just enough time to say that he, remembers giving the authority for the auto pen, but not enough time for him to really trip up over himself. And I don't think that there's an American out there that believes that Joe Biden was awake at 10 p.m. to give the authority to sign any of these. That just goes to, a little bit more like credibility to the argument that Joe Biden was not there mentally to be able to say, yes, give these pardons. And I think that it also gives a little bit more standing whenever we're talking about should we be able to undo some of these pardons,
right,
especially for people like Dr. Fauci, who wreaked havoc on this country. And I also think it's really interesting that he didn't sign like Jill Biden's pardon, but he did sign Hunter Biden's pardon.
Isn't that something?
It is something to think about.
Yeah.
I know that if my husband was not signing my pardon, I would be like, what the heck is wrong with you? It would be definitely a tables discussion.
The way this happened to me is, in my mind, he knew about Hunter's because Hunter probably came with him and left a little something downstairs whenever he came in, if you know what I mean. I mean, I don't know whose stuff it was, but I'm just saying something was left there at some time or another. And Hunter came and he said, I got to get this pardon, Dad. And so he's like, all right, I'll sign it for you. And then that night, Jill's like, you didn't do any of this for us. So look, she's conducting cabinet meetings and all kinds of things. Maybe Jill was the one who was just like, so I picked up the phone, somebody get me a pardon. Just do a pardon for like the whole Biden family and then just use the auto pen. Joe says it's okay. Go ahead with it. I don't know, Bethany, that's not completely outrageous, especially considering that Joe Biden's doctor, Kevin O'Connor, pleaded the fifth to every single question he was asked recently when he went to Capitol Hill. Wow. Why would you need to plead the fifth? You can't answer a single question about Joe Biden and his cognition. Really kind of stinks to a lot of us, Bethany.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there is theoretically a pending DOJ investigation. That's why he claims he pled the fifth. I can't wait for that investigation personally.
Great, yeah.
And, they talk a lot about, Banana Republic stuff. Like, first of all, let's just all rewind to what happened to the former president when he was the former president in New York City.
Yeah.
So the Banana Republic argument is completely out the window as far
Bethany,
as
that was like a year ago. Don't forget that. Right before Butler. Is that crazy that all of that nonsense happened in downtown Manhattan with Alvin Bragg? Don't forget we had Letitia James in in New York State. The whole thing. This was last year. It's like mind-boggling. There was a lot. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no,
that was
you're
like a year
absolutely
ago.
right. I mean, I say that was the moment where I went from a Trump voter, like, yeah, I'm going to vote for Trump, like whatever, to like, I will walk over broken glass.
Yes.
And then the glass got really, really sharp after Butler.
Because it was straight Banana Republic stuff that they were doing to him, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So they've set the stage now that they cannot ever claim that this current administration opening investigation to the fact that our former president had Swiss cheese for brains and was handing out pardons with an auto pen. I mean, he wasn't handing out pardons. I would like to know who was handing out those pardons. Yeah. And that should be the subject of a DOJ investigation because something smells. All of America knows that. And we saw President Biden trying to open a lawn chair on a beach on the 4th of July weekend. Yeah. We know he wasn't approving those. If he can't open a beach chair, he can't approve the number of pardons that he did. And, let's just make it simple. Let's make it easy on him and have him sit down and say, okay, this person was pardoned. Who were they? What did they do? Let's do just a very basic cognitive test to see if he knew who these people are and what they did and why he pardoned them, and just sit down with him. I mean, we'll get the same answer that we got when he was under investigation for other stuff when, we were told he's a doddering old man who means well. That was why he wasn't subject to charges before. And I think that's what we're going to get again.
I got to tell you something. The ones that I also would like to see perhaps have their pardons revoked, the J6th committee. That was, I mean, again, let's go back to the whole Banana Republic talking point. Whenever you have government trying so desperately to sway the will of the American people, to put on a show, that was full theater, that was full theatrics, what they did there. Remember the whole story about President Trump in the back of the limo, the back of the Beast?
Yeah.
Grabbing the wheel while the Secret Service agent is driving, and
It's just so wild.
this stuff was nuts, and they desperately wanted to do. Their whole goal with that was that the American people would be like, "Holy smokes, we can't have a guy like that ever as president again. If he's grabbing the wheel of the Beast and taking over with Secret Service agents half his age, give me a break." All of that stuff, those people ought to be questioned for the rest of their lives. They ought to answer for everything they tried to pull there, all those stunts, and not the least of them being Adam Schiff, that guy from day one with the Russia collusion hoax and all of it. I'll never get over it. The what he caused in this country. The amount of money that our American citizens, our taxpayers had to pay tens of millions of dollars for a Russia collusion investigation because he claimed he had the smoking gun. That guy I want to see questioned fully. Before we go, we do have more. I mean, I don't like to do all the bad news, but we still are talking about this New York City mayoral race, and with good reason, because apparently Andrew Cuomo is going to jump in this thing as an independent. And this is the one thing that a lot of us were worried would happen. So Cuomo lost in the Democrat primary to Zohran Mamdani, a socialist. And he said, you know what, I'm going to say solidify a socialist becomes mayor of New York City, I'll jump into this thing as an independent. So what does that mean? That means the independent vote that would have gone to Eric Adams will now be split with Andrew Cuomo. You'll get some Democrats voting for him, maybe even some Republicans. I don't know, because I really like him, but Curtis Sliwa doesn't really have a chance here. Here's a new poll out. Mamdani comes in at 40%, Cuomo 24%, Adams 15%, and Sliwa 14%. I'm just going to say, Mary, I think that's going to do it. There's something that has to shift around here. Somebody needs to get together with Cuomo, Adams, and Sliwa and say, you guys need to figure something out here because all three of you can't be in this. We're going to lose this race.
Absolutely. This is Ross Perot all over again.
Yeah.
And so we're sitting here and, I think that the problem with this is that it's just so inherently selfish of Andrew Cuomo to jump back into this race. It's purely for his own political survival and public survival that he's doing this. He killed so many senior citizens in New York and hurt so many citizens of his state that he should be bowing out and going out and sitting in retirement and folding out his lawn chair and sitting on the beach like a retiree that he should be. I mean, it's disgusting. Curtis Sliwa has no chance of winning. Someone needs to sit him down and be honest with him and tell him that. He's taking votes away. Not to say that Adams is the savior of the world, because I don't think that he's that.
He's
great,
the best of the options.
Exactly. You have a binary choice.
Yeah.
You have Eric Adams, who is willing to work with President Trump and help clean up New York City. And then you have Zohran Mamdani, who is going to be the absolute worst case scenario for New York City and just drop it even lower than it already is. Fight against the Trump administration, ensure that their taxes go up. Billionaires are going to flee. Prices are going to rise. No matter what he does as far as price control goes, the problem with this is that when you look at Mamdani's polling and you see that it is mainly white, affluent females that are voting for him, that is what shocks me every single time, because they pretend to care so much about the marginalized and the poor and all of this stuff, but their policies are going to absolutely murder the soul of anyone from the middle class down to the lower class of New York City. That's the problem with this. It's those people that are going to carry the burden of it. They may pay higher taxes, but they are going to carry the burden every single day when they're trying to decide whether or not they're going to feed their families, fill their car with gas, pay the astronomical tolls to drive into New York City for work, pay, to be able to send their kids to soccer or football or baseball or whatever it is. When you have to make these choices and you're looking at it completely different, as opposed to someone who's like, I don't have a care in the world. I don't have to worry about how much, a baseball glove costs or how much it's going to cost to be able to outfit my child for school, because, I've got all the money I want. But whenever you have someone that is literally fighting just to pay their rent, just to be able to afford food, it's so sick to me. And I wish I could like shake every one of them and be like, stop being so freaking selfish and stop like using your social justice warrior patch to like cover up your sins, because that's exactly what's happening here.
But that's the truth. First of all, the people who you're talking about, the middle and sort of working class in New York, those people can't move. They don't have any other option. The Upper East, Upper West Side, kind of rich socialites who voted this guy into being the Democrat nominee, they can go wherever they want. They'll go to one of their other houses. They'll go down to, Palm Beach. They'll go out to their Hamptons house. They're going to be fine. But you're right to say they feel like they're doing something morally superior, like they are actually doing something good. They're so dumb, they don't understand, Bethany, the implications of socialism. It has never worked anywhere it has been implemented ever in the world. It doesn't work. It destroys places. And New York City is one of the greatest cities, if not the greatest city on earth. I lived in New York for a long time. I love New York City. It's my background here as I'm in New York right now. It is so frightening that this is where we have come. But this is just another one of the stars, up and coming stars of the Democrat Party, Bethany.
Yeah, and that's what's really scary. I'm also born and bred in New York City. I was born at Mount Sinai Hospital. I graduated from the Beacon School on the Upper West Side. Like, I'm born and bred also. My family goes back as far as we've been in America. We were all New York City.
Wow.
But now it's at the point where, it's already at the point where I wouldn't ride the subway with my children. And it's going to get exponentially worse. And Mary's right. The people who this will impact are the people who ride the subways. These rich women on the Upper West and the Upper East Side, they're taking taxis everywhere. They're not going to care that this is happening. I truly believe that Zohar Mavdani won because he had a really good graphic designer and a really good videographer. And that is what got him at the end of the day.
That's so frightening.
Was the visual, but these are so uninformed people. They have no idea that socialism has never worked, because all they cared about was this was the hot new thing, just like Obama was 15 years ago. But it's a frightening turn in the Democratic Party, and that's what really scares me. He's also, that whole group of people are talking about primarying other New York Democrats who, by the way, are pro-Israel, and that's why they're targeting them. Like, this rot in the Democratic Party goes from domestic policy to foreign policy, and it's a really, really scary turn.
Yeah, I don't know how we got to a place where someone running for any public office, let alone to be mayor of New York City, can be openly anti-Semitic, and that's okay. We're not gonna worry about that, especially in the wake of the last year and a half, 2 years. It's crazy to me. But ladies, thank you so much for the great conversation. Appreciate your viewpoints on everything. To everybody at home, as always, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and follow. And we'll see you back here next time for more of The Right View. And I won't back down.